Hi, I'm Bill DeYoung from the St. Pete Catalyst. This is the Catalyst Sessions for Tuesday, October 20th. Such an honor to welcome Dr. Kanika Tomalin, who is Deputy Mayor and the City Administrator for our wonderful city of St. Petersburg. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. How are you?
Good to see you.
Always great to see you.
I got lots of stuff that interests me. Down there among your many impressive degrees is a degree in broadcast journalism from Florida A&M.
Yeah.
And my brother, who is a contractor in Dixie County, Florida, has a degree in broadcasting. He was also a professional stone crabber for many years. And,
oh my gosh.
And my point is that if you've ever watched the Catalyst Sessions, when that comes up, I usually say something like, that's one of the most worthless degrees there is. Because it didn't look at you, for example, all the other things that you've done. You were a staff writer for the Times for a couple of years in the early 90s. Is that as a result of the broadcast journalism degree, or how did that work?
So
or were you on the radio somewhere or TV?
Yeah, so my relationship with the Times and journalism goes way back. It's my introduction to the professional world. I was a Poynter scholar in high school, and Poynter actually, I had a scholarship paid for my education, and I worked at the Times all through school at every break, and I was very interested in broadcast journalism, so that's what I got my degree in. It served me well. I worked on air in Tallahassee.
There you go. That's what I wanted to know. Yeah.
And I worked at Wave 3 in Louisville, Kentucky for a brief chapter, and then made my way back to the Times and figured out pretty quickly I was never satisfied with reporting a story and walking away.
Yeah.
I always wanted to have more impact and follow up on what was affecting the stories. So I figured out pretty quickly that journalism needed to be a transition for me into some type of work where I could help shape the story, not just report it.
Well, was that early on when you did that? Was that your goal? Yeah, I'd like to be a TV reporter, and then your worldview started broadening. Is that how
That's
it
right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I went into it totally with the goal of being an evening news anchor. I just wanted to tell the world stories every night.
Well, not so far, and you're doing it, and you're impacting people at the same time, and learning everyone's story is a big part of it. Is that where you met Terry? Was that the Times in those days?
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, of course.
I did the math. Yeah.
Walking through the newsroom of the Times, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. As Kanika Jelks, which was your name, you grew up in St. Petersburg.
I did.
So, as anybody who's watched the Catalyst Sessions again knows that we talk a lot about the arts in our community, and that's why we started this program back in March, where I think you might be show number 135 or 40. So it's a great way to swing around and talk to you about what was culture and the arts like when you were growing up here. I grew up here too, probably a little older, so we have different points of view there. But what was it like for you in those days? What did you do?
So it's interesting. I mean, I have enough self-awareness to understand I was a kid, and I didn't have a comprehensive understanding of all that the stewards of our community, all the things they were doing as it relates to the arts. But I don't recall growing up in a city of the arts. That wasn't my consciousness or my awareness. There certainly were some key elements, kind of milestones and markers related to the arts growing up. But I think that the evolution our city has seen, I'm 45. So certainly kind of following that time, and I think accelerated in the last 25 years, has been a pretty notable and iconic kind of movement along that continuum of being a city of the arts. The roots have always been here. Grew up, every child in St. Pete went to the Dali Museum. It had a very deep and kind of sophisticated understanding of that surrealist offering. Museum of Fine Arts, same type of thing.
Yeah.
It was a pretty pedestrian kind of exposure to the arts as a child, I'd say.
Oh, I would say the same for myself, but I think you're being too generous in saying, well, the roots were there, it just had to grow, because when I came up in the 70s, for example, and it was pretty dead. I mean, to be honest, you know, we talk a lot about the cultural renaissance in St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
And I would sometimes say to folks, well, it's not really a renaissance. It's almost like a fresh bloom, because I'm not sure where all of this came from exactly, the artistic community here.
Well, in my experience and understanding I've been fortunate to have, especially in this time in City Hall, it's very intentional. No serendipity in it at all. There are some chief architects who made a decision, again, about 25 years ago, that was a window that this city could carve out because of some foundational elements, and really, really make an iconic push. You know, Wayne Atherholt was one of those architects.
He's great.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of working with Wayne at the Morian. I was on the Morian board. He worked there in several capacities. And when I came into this role, you know, I talked to the mayor and some other people and said, Wayne's been stewarding this whole art scene on so many levels. And again, that power of stories and telling the story and envisioning and willing it to be a city of the arts long before that was the truth. Or we were making that up long before that was the truth.
Yeah, well, that's the idea. Is that if you dream it strong enough, you can make it happen.
That's it.
So
it's like, we got to get him on our team. Jim Nixon's the guy.
One of the things that really works for me is the murals, is the Shine Mural Festival. It's sort of like that city art, you know, you don't have to go anywhere. It's just like it's all around you. And I love that. And I think that's a real hallmark of a city of the arts, is that it's everywhere.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, we are literally enveloped in art.
Yeah.
It is just a matter. So I juxtapose my childhood against my children's, and they know no different than to see beautiful, beautiful pieces line the wall, and the accessibility of that, the invitation of that is so important. I think it was an exponential kind of growth for us.
Well, I was going to ask you, you know, on a personal level, like what you and your family, what you do. I mean, you know, you guys big, you know, orchestra fans, or you go to see the opera, or is it more like a museum thing, or you go to, you know, rock and roll and I don't know, hip hop shows? I mean, what does the family do?
All of the above. We're a thick mix of generalist and populist. We love it all. My son actually is quite an artist. He's done a mural downtown. It's on the MSC building.
Oh,
it's a tribute to Takamatsu, our sister city. He traveled there as a student ambassador, and they had a mural dedicated to St. Pete. That is one of their most significant points of pride. And so he thought we should do the same here. And so they came back and created one. But performing arts, my daughter is a budding actor, loves the theater.
Oh yeah.
The thespian. So we run the gamut. We are like equal opportunity experiencers of art at every level. And we particularly try to patronize, support, get a good dose of our local art scene and support local artists in a way that is meaningful, for sure.
When you transitioned into politics, I guess we call it politics in an overarching sense, and it was 2014, I think, when you signed on. And what kind of leap of faith was that for you? I'm gonna do this now.
A huge one. You know, there's nothing in my background particularly or specifically that would suggest I'd be sitting in this seat right now. It wasn't something for which I prepared or aspired. Again, specifically, I do have a doctorate in law and policy. Mm-hmm. So I've always had a great affinity for the structures of government. But I was as surprised as anyone when Rick Reisman asked me to kind of leave my career in healthcare and partner with him in taking the city through its next chapter. And it was a huge leap of faith. My husband, who was my biggest cheerleader, who was the best guy, reminded me, because I thought it was kind of an out there thought. I had a pretty solid trajectory for healthcare executive, a path in healthcare leadership, CEO of a hospital. Yes. 8 years matters a lot in that trajectory. The hospital industry is so different from when I left. You know, it's a serious sacrifice to my career.
Mhm.
Terry was like, you have to do this. Our kids are the 6th generation of my family to call St. Pete home.
That's key, isn't it? Yeah.
It's like, got to give back to this community that's given so much to me. And it's been the biggest gift. I came into it thinking I was giving back. It's been the biggest gift to me. It's huge. So huge leap of faith. So grateful that I took it.
Was it culture shock too? Was it like everybody was speaking a different language when you got there?
Yes. Yes. It was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So, coming from the private sector, coming from healthcare, which moves so quickly and so dynamically, coming from a place where pretty much the senior leaders say it and it gets executed accordingly. It was a huge culture shift. Realize the senior leadership of this city are the 270,000 people who call it home.
Yeah.
And nothing's moving faster than the rate of their trust and buy-in that's the direction in which we should go. So it's been a good preparation for whatever comes next.
Well, that we'll get to. But I did want to ask, in a general sense, what have you learned in 6 years? I mean, is there a certain diplomacy that you had to finesse in this job that you didn't have in healthcare? Or a way of talking to people? Are you a sharper diplomat now? I guess I don't know. That kind of thing.
I mean, I'd like to think so. I certainly have gained a deep appreciation for the evolution that occurs before the outcomes that we all see and enjoy. I worked in government relations as a part of my role. So I was on the other side of the relationship with many other people I came to work with. And it was quite an education, all of the many inputs to get that output. I think that, I'm not particularly political. That's not my aspiration. It's not my inclination. So I have had to learn how to move the ball forward where I feel like I'm being true to myself, not just for political gain, and making sure it's very important to me in this role as city administrator that everybody who calls the city home feels served by the work, whether they agree with it or not. And finding a way to articulate that intent has been kind of my biggest focus and lesson. And I feel like I get better with it really with every issue.
What do you feel like is maybe the most important role you play or have played so far for the city? I mean, you must have like a figurative trophy on the shelf. That was a good thing I did. Or what are you most proud of, I guess?
So a few things. Healthy St. Pete is an initiative that I started in 2015. It was a condition of my work to come with the mayor that if I was going to leave healthcare, I needed to bring that impact with me in a meaningful way. And the goal was to really kind of create a culture of health, hardwire it, and accelerate important efforts. And I feel like we certainly have done that. And we have some empirical evidence that supports that. And most importantly, there's change that happens far outside the halls of City Hall, but are inspired and amplified by City Hall. So that gives me great joy and satisfaction. And the Innovation District was a huge project that I was working on at Bayfront prior to coming to City Hall. And it's kind of hallmark now and doing wonderful things. And I couldn't be more proud of that great work that team does.
Well, on the other side of that coin, how to phrase this, the work that's to be done next. I mean, to your mind, what are you most dedicated to now? And I mean, there's so many issues out there facing the city. What are you thinking about mostly?
So many issues. So I'll share like what keeps me up at night. What
keeps you up at night?
Makes my eyes pop open at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
The work to really nail our sustainability and resilience in a way that takes us far into the future, creates and leaves the city. There's a quote, let's be the ancestors our descendants will thank. And I think really understanding our ecological fragility in this community and setting us up for success is really important. Our work around poverty eradication came in, and we were at some pretty pressing levels of poverty, all focused in the African American community. you know, corner of the community in which I grew up, of which I am a member, and I wanted to make a significant difference there. I'll work on that until the day I leave City Hall. We are actually at a record low in poverty, and that's due to a lot of partnerships and a lot of visionary approach in the way that we attacked it. We tried to invest in people at least as much as places, and we've done that. We created a historic CRA construct that's unlike any our city or county has seen, that allows for that investment. And so and I think the Tropicana Field site redevelopment is one of the biggest ways we can continue that. And so
that was something I definitely wanted to pursue, was the Trop Field redevelopment. I mean, I don't know, Dr. Tomlin. I mean, are you allowed to have an opinion? Or, you know, I mean, you have to sort of say, we're going through, I mean, diplomatically, we're going through the process. But I mean, if I were to ask you, what do you think? What would you say? What do you think should happen?
At Tropicana Field?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a game changer, Bill.
Yeah.
When we talk to other mayors about this 86 contiguous acres of land proximate to our downtown that the city owns, which means we can have great voice in what unfolds there, they can't believe it. It's one of the biggest opportunities in the nation. And so, you know, I think we've done a good job as a community visioning that. I have to have an opinion. I think I have a responsibility to have a very informed opinion about what will create kind of timeless opportunity there. So we certainly need industry, we need education and research. We need a good mix of housing. We are very intentionally doing placemaking, reintroducing the street grid so that it is a seamless connection with the rest of the community and people have a reason to go there. Needs entertainment, and all of those things are possible. And I think it will just be a catalytic enzyme that sparks continual development that grows west and makes it's our most promising hope for St. Pete truly being a city where the sun shines on everybody, regardless of the corner of the community you're in.
If I were to say to you, though, you know, the Rays are going to the World Series now, and I don't know how that changes anybody's opinions of anything about what should happen to that property, and, you know, wishful thinking and whatever. But if I were to say to you, I think they should tear it down, we should take it back. I mean, is that what we're saying here? I mean, ultimately, that would be the best thing for the city, to absorb that site again and not repurpose the stadium.
I don't think it's mutually exclusive. I mean, the role of the city is to just nurture and kind of foster private development on that site that's going to self-perpetuate. And the Rays certainly can have a place there. The Rays belong in St. Pete. They've been at Tropicana Field historically, but they don't have to be there in exactly that footprint. We miss a huge opportunity if we don't reimagine that site and its connectivity to the rest of the city. So whether they're there within those 85 acres on a different piece or corner of the property, or they're adjacent to it, or even in a whole another part of the city, as long as they're in St. Pete.
Go Rays. The thing I don't understand, and I wonder about this, and it's probably in there and I just didn't see it, is if they were to stay there, how do you I mean, don't they need all that whole parking lot? What do you make it a smaller stadium? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a different world than when they built that stadium so many years ago. So, you know, I mean, there's almost no development that would create that much surface parking. You'd have to go vertical with that. You create even off-site things to make the most of that opportunity.
I see.
Yeah, people come to games in different numbers. You have the stadium not a standalone type of situation where you only go there if you're going to a game. You let the activity spill out with views that look over from hotels or office buildings.
So what we're saying is that the 1980s design is stale and outdated, and we can do better.
Yeah, we can reimagine that. I mean, I think of, you know, Minneapolis, or the way the Nationals just pours right into the surrounding area. There are so many ways to do that right. Maybe three more questions, and I'm gonna let you off the hook here. I did want to ask about the Boyd Hill campground that they're naming for Terry. You did mention to me once when I ran into you that made you very, very happy.
Did he go out there? I mean, it was pretty rough in those days. But he was an outdoorsman. He was a camper.
He was a consummate outdoorsman.
Yeah.
Every outdoor activity and anything that unfolded in Florida, he had his hands all over, but nothing more than the outdoor options that exist right here in our own backyard. And he loved Boyd Hill.
Yeah.
He would take my kids there on Sunday and call it the Church of the Outdoors. They could either go to church with me and sit quietly in tight clothes, or they could go hike at Boyd Hill. And
I'm sorry, I'm going with that.
Yeah, I don't think I won very often, but he loved it, and he actually had a great relationship with Mike Jeffress.
Oh yeah,
Runs our leisure services department, and they would meet regularly, have coffee, and Terry would share a lot of insights of thoughts and visions he had for Boyd Hill, and that idea of a municipal campground that really makes it accessible for people who are here in the city. Was something that he and Mike were working on together. So at his passing, Mike pretty immediately thought, oh, we're going to dedicate that to Terry.
I remember the interview you did with Mike, and you were both so effusive about Boyd Hill, which is, do you remember it when you were a kid? Because I certainly do.
Oh yeah.
And you didn't see like the old zoo and all that. That was probably gone. Do you remember?
No, that was gone. The zoo was gone.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I wrote sort of an historic story about it and learned a lot. But it's a beautiful area, and the ranger out there, whose name escapes me right now, Howard. I can't remember your last name, Howard, but he was the one who first used the phrase to me, the Central Park of St. Petersburg. That Boyd Hill is. It's amazing that it's still there, and nobody's messed with it.
It really is. I mean, and that's very intentional. I mean, the city is the steward of that property, and it's an amazing preserve. It's an oasis right in the, you talk about being right in the middle of it all.
Yeah.
You know, and as many people know about it, so many people have never seen it, never experienced it, and that is a shame. So we're trying to activate it, trying to find ways to call people from their various nooks and crannies and neighborhoods to these great points of pride that really illustrate and define our city, and Boyd Hill is certainly one of those.
Oh my gosh.
My daughter started a program called Love Where You Live, where she works with kids in rec centers. Her dad instilled in her a great love of the outdoors, and she always, both my kids kind of took that for granted and realized over time, some people grow up and never have that chance to get out. So that's going to be a big part of it too, and it's all a great way to honor Terry's awesome legacy.
Is it open yet? Have they done the dedication?
No, final stages. They're in
final stages.
Final stages, yeah.
Everything's in final or mid stages now. Let me get a sense from you, if I can, about the future. You know, with related to COVID, and it's so difficult for anybody to make any kind of predictions. But I don't know. I'll ask you as one member of the public. Are we going to be okay?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
We are going to be okay. We're a resilient city, you know, and the path to resilience is paved with disruption. That is just the case. And the more we become a bustling, I say real city, not that we were ever not a real city, but a city that is on par with the greatest places in our state, in our nation, in our world, we're going to see more real issues. And I think we definitely have the social capital. It comes and shows up every time St. Pete wraps its arms around each other, and we will definitely get through it. You know, our local business landscape, the people who pour their hearts and their passions into this place, we have everything we need to be everything we want. I have zero question that whatever comes our way, it may be a challenge, it may call on the deepest and the best that we have, but we will find a way to get through it. We always have, and we always will.
Okay, this leads me to my last question, which is, in a way, the one I've been working up to. Mayor Kreisman's term is over next year. Are you going to run for mayor?
So you think we're going to break this news on the Catalyst sessions? That's awesome. I would if I used to break. But, you know, I'm the city administrator, which is an awesome job that I love.
Yeah.
City administrators often serve multiple mayors. My kids are in a very delicate place. I don't, particularly right now, know that I'm going to run for mayor in the next election. I love to continue to serve my city for as long as my city feels served by me.
Very well said. And
Thank you.
just vague enough. And I get it. Hey, Dr. Tomalin, it's such a pleasure to speak with you today. And, continue success and see you on the other side of the COVID thing. And I don't know, go Rays, huh?
Go Rays, go Rays. And thank you for what you do. Telling stories, the power of stories is so real and so important. And you do it.
We're so glad that your Just Getting Started podcast is part of the Catalyst too.
I love it. I'm grateful for that time.
Well, thank you again. We'll see you real soon.
Absolutely. Be well. Bye-bye.